When two WWE superstars begin to date, this can have wider implications for their careers. On occasion, the relationship can have negative effects on one of the superstars in the relationship, and the reasons for this have varied throughout the years. Also, there are times when two superstars unfortunately get together in a deceitful way, and this leaves a lot of bad blood between anyone tied to the two superstars. So, with that being said, let's take a look at 10 real-life WWE relationships that ruined careers.
Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos, and follow us on Facebook for exclusive lists.
Number 10. Cody Rhodes and Eden. When Cody Rhodes decided to leave the WWE in 2016, he cited creative frustrations for his departure. Rhodes was married to WWE ring announcer Eden at the time of his departure, and most fans know Eden as Brandi Rhodes, who is now a regular on AEW TV. Before Brandi was in AEW, she was in a promising position in WWE. However, with the departure of her husband, she also had to depart from the WWE. Brandi left behind a successful WWE career in favor of supporting her husband wherever he ended up. Whilst the real-life marriage between Cody and Brandi may have ruined Brandi's WWE career, Brandi was certainly fine in the long run, as she would eventually become the chief branding officer for AEW. Number 9. Triple H and Stephanie McMahon Test. Sometimes in pro wrestling, two superstars getting together can have a negative impact on other superstars on the roster. This was certainly the case during the Attitude Era, when Triple H and Stephanie's relationship ruined the WWE career of Test. Triple H and Stephanie are perhaps the most famous couple in WWE history. They first began to work together on WWE TV back in 1999, and the two quickly formed a bond that hasn't been broken since. Their first on-screen storyline together involved Triple H getting married to Stephanie, and the two would proceed to take over the entire WWE. The initial plan called for Test to receive a huge push by his association with Stephanie. According to Vince Russo, the plan called for Test to actually dump Stephanie at the altar, and Test would turn into one of WWE's top heels. However, Vince saw how much chemistry Triple H and Stephanie had, and Vince made the executive decision that Triple H would receive the push, whilst Test would lose his push completely. Test would never recover from the storyline cancellation, and with Stephanie and Triple H becoming a real-life item, Test never got his revenge on Triple H, and WWE failed to present the talented performer as a legitimate threat ever again. Number 8. Enzo Amore and Liv Morgan. Enzo Amore attained a reputation during his time in WWE for being incredibly problematic. He was disliked by a number of his peers, and some state that his WWE career truly began to take a downward spiral when he began to date WWE star Liv Morgan. In 2017, it was reported that Morgan broke off the relationship with Enzo due to his infidelity, and this was reportedly met with disdain from those backstage in WWE, as Morgan was beloved by her peers as well as WWE management. Number 7. Alberto Del Rio and Paige. The relationship between Alberto Del Rio and Paige has been well documented over the past several years. Paige has accused Del Rio of physical and mental abuse, and this has since been supported by another woman who Del Rio previously dated. The relationship between Del Rio and Paige absolutely shattered Del Rio's reputation and ultimately his wrestling career. So much so that WWE wants absolutely nothing to do with the former WWE champion. Del Rio has a habit of publicly declaring that he's returning to WWE, but WWE have outright denied this. WWE have even released a statement to the media in 2020 to state that WWE has no interest in working with Del Rio in any capacity. Number 6. Batista and Melina. There have been rumors surrounding the complications and impacts of the brief relationship between Batista and Melina for the past 15 years. The rumor at the time was that Melina began to date Batista while she was still dating John Morrison. All three were still in WWE at the time, and Batista was one of the biggest stars in the entire company, so he was virtually untouchable. It is believed that Vince McMahon completely gave up on Morrison ever being a big star in WWE due to his lack of action when it was revealed that Batista had been dating Melina. According to former WWE writer John Piermarini, Vince McMahon believed that Morrison looked like he couldn't win a real fight and therefore couldn't be a top babyface. And this had led fans to speculating that Vince obtained this belief thanks to Morrison's lackadaisical attitude towards the Batista and Melina scenario. Number 5. CM Punk and AJ Lee. CM Punk and AJ Lee began to date in late 2013, and this coincided with Punk's final months in WWE. Punk was fed up with WWE creative, and a plague of injuries was making Punk resent being in the company. This all came to a head in January of 2014 when Punk officially walked out of WWE, and he hasn't returned since. The issue was that Punk's girlfriend and future wife, AJ, was the top star in WWE's women's division. This put WWE and AJ in an awkward position. Once it became public that AJ was dating Punk, the fans would hijack all of AJ's matches and promos with chants for Punk, and this became an ongoing trend for the remainder of AJ's WWE career. WWE and Punk would throw direct shots at each other for the next couple of years. WWE would even officially fire Punk on his wedding day, and a famous lawsuit between Punk and WWE Dr. Chris Amon was filed in early 2015. All of these life-altering events took place whilst AJ was still employed by WWE. According to Punk, when he appeared on Renee Paquette's Oral Sessions podcast, AJ being in WWE at the time of his public battles with WWE certainly raised problems in the relationship. Punk stated, "I don't know if anything changed. It was just hard. Being sued by this company. There were probably a lot of arguments, a lot of fights that were a manifestation of me being angry. It was hard on her because she was still working there, and also her neck got messed up. There was a lot going on, but obviously it made us stronger." In 2015, following WrestleMania 31, AJ decided to retire from WWE. She would cite injuries as the reason she would retire, and whilst this was no doubt a factor, it must have been incredibly uncomfortable for AJ to remain in the company with everything that was unfolding between WWE and her husband. Number 4. Stone Cold Steve Austin and DEBRA. When Stone Cold Steve Austin walked out of WWE in 2002, Austin's wife and WWE superstar DEBRA walked out with him. However, in 2002, their relationship would be shattered as there were reports of domestic abuse, and this actually led to the police getting involved and arresting Austin. The two would divorce in the summer of 2002, and although WWE should have stuck with DEBRA during this difficult time, they did quite the opposite. Due to Austin and DEBRA's relationship coming to an end, DEBRA was virtually blacklisted from WWE. Whilst Austin returned in early 2003, DEBRA would never return, and she was never mentioned on WWE TV ever again. Number 3. John Cena and Mickie James. Due to John Cena being WWE's golden boy, he is never going to face punishment for what goes on in his personal life. This was certainly the case in 2007 when Cena began to date Mickie James. The issue here was that Mickie was engaged to Kenny Dykstra at the time, and Kenny was actually someone who WWE thought could be a huge star for them. WWE's answer to this problematic affair was to move Kenny to SmackDown so he would be away from Mickie and Cena. WWE also stopped pushing Kenny completely, and he would be released in 2008, which led to some fans speculating that Cena was involved in some capacity in the former Spirit Squad member's release. Number 2. Edge and Lita. One of the biggest scandals in WWE history was, without a doubt, the time it surfaced that Edge and Lita had an affair behind Matt Hardy's back. Matt naturally reacted in the manner any human being would. He was furious, but Matt took his frustrations out via his website rather than keeping matters private. This was a move which didn't sit well with WWE. WWE shockingly decided to release Matt from his contract. This caused utter outrage from fans, as Matt had done nothing wrong, but WWE believed that Edge was someone they wanted to become a main event talent in WWE, and they viewed Matt as disposable. Fan resentment was at an all-time high, and everything Lita and Edge would do on WWE TV would be hijacked with "You screwed Matt" and "We want Matt" chants. Eventually, WWE brought back Matt, but his WWE career was never the same. Matt was embarrassed in the feud with Edge, and he was made to look like a fool most of the time. Following the feud with Edge, Matt never ascended to the main event scene, and it was clear that the Edge and Lita affair had unfairly impacted WWE's perception of him. Number 1. Triple H and Stephanie McMahon, Chyna. The career and life of Chyna is full of triumph as well as defeat. Back during the Attitude Era, Chyna was dating Triple H. This was until Triple H began an on-screen relationship with Stephanie McMahon, which eventually turned into a real-life love affair. According to Chyna, she found out about the affair thanks to discovering a love letter from Stephanie directed towards Triple H. During a 2011 interview with Wrestling Inc., Chyna revealed, "Well, I had my doubts. Like people always say, is this real? It's television. Is the storyline real? I was like, is there something going on? If there is, I can take it. This was my love, this was my career. I need to know because I didn't want to lose my career." He just kept saying it wasn't, but his attitude had changed. "I actually did the snoop. I found a love letter from Stephanie McMahon that had been dated from the previous year, so I knew there was an affair going on." Shortly after discovering the affair, Chyna was released from her WWE contract, and it was believed that Vince knew all along that Stephanie and Triple H were having an affair behind Chyna's back. Chyna's life and career would never be the same, as she would spend the rest of her life struggling both physically and mentally before her untimely passing in 2016.
But there you have it, folks. Be sure to leave your comments down below, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.